What's up, friends? Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports here on this beautiful Monday in Lawrence alongside Dan Courtwright. I'm Sean Kellerman. Thanks for joining us. We've got a victorious football team to discuss here in the opening segment, so we're going to do that. In the next segment, bring on Kevin Flaherty from the Kansas City Sports Network to give his take on a one-possession victory for our Jayhawks. Also, got to ask Kevin about the news for KU basketball. All of a sudden, the Hawks are abuzz before the season even starts. Bill Self on the recruiting trail, absolutely killing it. So we'll talk to Kevin about football and basketball next segment. We're going to hear from a couple of Jayhawks post-game the victory at UCF. After that, both Jalon Daniels and Leshon Williams will give their take on the victory. And then 5 o'clock hour, Dan, Case of the Mondays segment. Right. I've got some Arizona Cardinals on the mind. I literally was losing my mind. NFL Survivor Pool situation yesterday. Did you see how they lost?
I did. Well, Amari DeMarcado, I was actually going to open with that in Case of the Mondays.
Yes,
also,
we can get to
absolutely
that,
insane interception.
Unbelievable string of events. And I was not happy right around 6:30 yesterday. Survivor Pool gone wrong. Shout out to Arizona. But my God.
In theory, you should always fade the Titans, but man. Shout out to Cam Ward.
Apparently not.
Is that his first win?
Yeah, he led the comeback. Anyway, more on that in the Case of the Monday segment. K-State's going to make an appearance as well in our Case of the Monday segment. They're paying rent there at this point. Lance Leipold post-game audio we're going to have after our Case of the Monday segment. And then we're closing talking Chiefs football as they head to Duval County. Chiefs 2-2. Jags are 3-1. Monday Night Football, you and I were talking about, let's just do this every week.
I would love that.
Right?
I would absolutely love that because that gives us a Tuesday open.
That's true.
But more so because of the fact that I like the standalone games. Monday Night Football is always so much fun, too. It gives you something to look forward to on your Mondays in case you are having a Case of the Mondays, right?
That's true. I mean, we're going to be talking about the birds, of course, every single time on Monday. But, hey, you know what? We're fine drinking from the fire hose if they play on Sundays. So it's a lot better than the summer, as we bellyached about that a couple times. But it's an exciting show for you here on Rock Chalk Sports. Dan, Kansas, UCF. How about that? Hawks come out on top 27-20. KU 4-2, 2-1 in Big 12 play. And what was so vital in this one is the fact that the defense stood tall. 2 different occasions, KU denied UCF at game point. They had to do it twice, and on the first, they had to do it 3 times at the 1-yard line. They got it done, and KU completed the come-from-behind victory after trailing 14-0. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I have a couple of things. I want to start off with the last in that fourth quarter, right? Because as much as I hate to say this, because I want to think of myself as an analytically minded person, but when it was 1st and goal from the 2-yard line, I thought, oh, here we go again. And then Kansas made the stop. And then we give the ball back with about over a minute to go. And I thought, oh, here we go again. But Kansas was able to stand tall. So I think that's definitely a testament to, all of the things that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks and even over the last year, right? Last year, that was the big thing of, Kansas cannot finish in the last 2 minutes of halves. Well, Kansas was able to, and in one of the ones that was the hardest in last week against Cincinnati, Kansas came out against UCF, a bad start, right? Kansas got down 14-0, and all of a sudden you thought, man, this could get out of hand quickly. And Kansas did exactly what they needed to do. They were great in the intermediate passing game on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, made a complete 180 in terms of their rush defense, right? I mean, we saw Miles Montgomery go for 100 yards in the first half alone, and he only wound up with 116 yards on the game. So a really fantastic job by that Kansas defense, making those halftime adjustments, coming out of the locker room. And that's going to be a thing that's not really necessarily talked about as much as, we can talk about Kansas in the last 2 minutes of halves, right? Last 2 minutes of the second quarter and last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. Kansas is really good out of the locker room, I think, right? Their plus minus before the UCF game coming out of the locker room in the first and third quarter their point differential was plus 67. So that's really shows you how good they are coming out of the locker room. Now, before the UCF game, their point differential coming, in the second quarter and the fourth quarter was only plus 7. So that there shows you, okay, well, they have some things that they absolutely need to figure out. But I thought the defense came up strong. I thought Jalon played an all right game, right? 18 for 26, 235. Didn't have any touchdowns through the air, gave up a sack as well. I thought Leshon Williams looked really good. That was something that we really needed to see. He had 3 touchdowns. That was his first multi-touchdown game as a collegiate athlete, and a lot of them came from inside the red zone, which was another thing that we kind of talked about, was those red zone struggles that we saw from Kansas not being able to punch it in a good amount of time, right? Especially on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball too. Their defensive red zone specialty is not exactly great as well. But Leshon Williams did an excellent job. Like I said, 3 touchdowns. Harry Stewart got some action as well. We saw Jalon a little bit in the option, not necessarily the best option game, I would say, for Jalon Daniels. He still had 10 carries for 30 yards. I thought Jalon had an excellent game through the air. Couple of guys I want to highlight, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about this. But at today's press conference, Lance Leipold did say that Deshaun Hanukkah is going to be out for the season. He had surgery last week, and he will no longer be able to play this season. So you look at that tight end room, you go, okay, well, you feel like you have a lot of depth there. And the guy who's kind of sticking out above the rest is Bowden Gruen. Bowden Gruen had a fantastic game. 2 receptions, 63 yards, had a big one down the middle early in the game for 46 yards. So we're seeing Bowden Gruen kind of really fit himself into that role as that starting number 1 tight end. Everything about this game, because there's a lot of bad things you can pick out and say, okay, well, yeah, they did bad starting the game, right? Started off 14-0. They gave up some stuff on the run game in the first half, but all that to be said, that Kansas wound up winning this game, and arguably the biggest concern for Kansas was that last 2 minutes of the game, and Kansas figured it out.
And last year, how often did we see that wasn't the case? This
Right.
time it's KU figuring out a way to get it done at game point, and that they did. I'm going to talk defense. I'm going to talk offense. But first, just look at this at face value. With the win, KU 4-2, 2-1 in conference play. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? You know what doesn't look as good? 3-3, 1-2 with a trip to Lubbock coming up. And that's what was staring at Kansas had they dropped this one to UCF. And by all indications, after the first quarter, that's what was going to happen, right? Kansas was not out there playing their best ball, and UCF, they built the big lead. You had to have this one. I mean, you look at the schedule, you feel okay about your chance against K-State, right? You know that's going to be a difficult game, and they're not as bad as their 2-4 record, in my opinion. Oklahoma State is bad. You got to win that one, okay? Your other home game is against a really good Utah team. That's the last game of the season on Black Friday. You got to get to at least 6 games, and we know that this Kansas program has a much bigger goal than that. But first step is getting bowl eligible,
yes.
And Kansas certainly can do that. If you lost this one to UCF, you still have other really difficult games to go. At Texas Tech upcoming, which we'll have all sorts of coverage on this week. Plus, you got to go to Arizona still. You got to go to Iowa State still. Those are really difficult games. So you had to get this one, particularly after you dropped close ones to Mizzou and Cincinnati. So 4-2, 2-1. Hey, last year Kansas started 1-5 through 6 games.
Yeah.
This is a really quality start for this Kansas football program. And now you can look ahead, and now you can kind of go to Texas Tech with the mindset of, hey, we don't have anything to lose right now. Nobody is expecting Kansas to win that game. The prognosticators like Texas Tech. They think it's going to be a comfortable win for them and all of that. If Kansas were 3-3, 1-2, then you don't have a lot of confidence going into that game. But now you just went on the road in a better environment than I expected it to be, honestly, at the Bounce House. You found a way to get it done, and you showed so much toughness in doing that. And I want to start with the defense, because so often in the Coach Leipold era, Dan, it's been all about the offense, right? So fun to watch, and we want to continue to have that. Jalon Daniels is a top-tier caliber quarterback, and he can do it with his arm. He can do it with his legs. And for so many years, we had Devin Neal being a top-tier Big 12 running back and one of the best that KU's ever seen. And you got playmakers on the outside, and you're throwing deep balls, and you're gashing them in the run game and all that. The defense has kind of also been there. You know, they've also been there. That's a part of the game, but it hasn't been a situation where the defense has had their moments as often. There have been a couple moments. They got a big stop against Oklahoma a couple years ago and helped seal the victory there against the top 10 team here in Lawrence. But they haven't had really that moment. And they had that moment multiple times against UCF. 20-20 was when the biggest play of the game happened, when Jalon Dye forced the fumble, Trey Lathan scooped it up, and KU had first and goal at the 2.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway we've been talking about.
That's
What
right.
we needed. We needed that takeaway, and this team hasn't caused a ton of takeaways to this point of the season, but that was a game changer. KU wins by the 7 points that a turnover differential provided them. It didn't start that good, right? 14-0. UCF was up. It was a nightmarish first quarter.
Absolutely.
KU couldn't do anything on offense. And then defensively, one gash play, one chunk play after another for UCF. Miles Montgomery, to your point, had 10 carries for 96 yards in the first quarter. Not the first half, the first quarter. He had a 3-yard touchdown on the first play of the second quarter, 10 carries, 99 yards. He was looking like the best tailback in the country. And I told Brian Haney on my post-game locker room show after the game, I was having nightmares of Samaje Perine from when Samaje Perine ran for 427 as a freshman against KU back in 2014, setting the NCAA record. It's like, man, Miles Montgomery, we can't do anything. And there were tackling issues and all that, and we'll get into that. But after that first carry in the second quarter for Miles Montgomery, they kept feeding him. He had 12 additional carries as the game went on that only netted 11 yards. Kansas was tackling better. They were getting TFLs. They totaled 9 TFLs in whole, and that flipped the script. A UCF team who scored 2 touchdowns on their first 2 possessions, then would score 2 field goals on their next 2 offensive possessions in the first half. A little bit better for KU's defense, but still 4 offensive possessions for the Knights and 4 scores. Nothing in the second half. KU got Bengali Kamara back, and I'll let you expand on the defense before we flip to offense. Bengali Kamara, monster immediately. Plus, he was fresh, right?
That's right.
He didn't play the first half, so he had a little bit more legs under him than some of his teammates, you'd imagine. But with Kamara's return, plus you got to see some other guys have their moments. Talked about Jalon Dye. All the breaking down we do, we don't talk enough about the Dye brothers. We really don't. We talk a lot about the younger guys. The Dye brothers are solid program guys, and Jalon Dye had one of the biggest plays of the season for Kansas. But Kamara was huge. There were some other guys up front. Trey Lathan, is going to be there. And second and goal at the 1, 3 straight stops for KU. And then they had to do it again after Kansas couldn't get a first down. They stepped up again, and just a huge program win, and feels so good finally winning one of those one-possession games.
Yeah, I think to your point about Bengali Kamara, right? Him being able to come in that second half really flipped the script for that Kansas team. And that's not saying anything about John Kamara, because look, John Kamara, everything that we've heard about him, he's the most athletic guy. Every week he does something where all the coaches go, man, that's not physically possible. But there's still a little bit of rawness to him, right? There's still a little bit of coaching that needs to happen, and assignment work that needs to kind of be worked on with John Kamara. And we saw that a little bit in the rushing game as well. He was biting on things. He was getting caught up with double teams and holds, and not holds, but blocks, different kinds of things like that, giving up big chunk yard rush plays to Miles Montgomery. Bengali Kamara came in and just absolutely made a difference. And I had some people texting me being like, man, is Bengali Kamara the best player in the country? Because with one guy coming in on the defense, flipping the script that much, that shouldn't happen, but it absolutely did. And I think Bengali Kamara is he the best defensive player in the country? I mean, probably not, but I will say this: he's he's underrated and not talked about enough in the national media, with how much of a difference he makes on that Kansas defensive side of the ball. Also, we were seeing some guys out there making plays, like you said, with the Dye brothers and a number of different players on the defensive side of the balls that we haven't really been talking about either, right? We saw Dak Brinkley get a ton of pressure on Cam Fancher down the stretch. We saw Justice Finkley come up huge. Justice Finkley all year we've been talking about how, man, we want to see more out of Justice Finkley. He's such a good leader and such a good guy in the program. We want to see more. And he came up big with a hit on that 4th down, or I guess it was the 3rd down stop for Kansas when they were at 3rd and goal. It was 1st and goal from the 2, and he came up big on that drive as well. So those 2 defensive end guys coming off that edge, making those plays, has been absolutely huge. We saw Lyric Rawls getting into the backfield, Jalon Dye on that corner blitz, like you talked about, or the safety blitz, where he essentially took Taven Jackson out of the game. Now, it was a little bit of a interesting situation because Cam Fancher came in for Taven Jackson, and I thought Cam Fancher looked better than Taven Jackson did. Taven Jackson had a fantastic start to the game, right? He was throwing dimes, absolutely, you're hitting his guys, and then the run. But the run game was really the conversation in the first half. Cam Fancher came in there. I thought he looked more poised, and I thought he had better footwork than Taven Jackson did. I thought Cam Fancher did an excellent job. He also did it on his legs too. Seven rushing attempts for 27 yards. I thought Cam Fancher, I mean, it's such an interesting, like I said, situation because Cam Fancher was the original starter for this team. He got knocked out. Taven Jackson was able to take over while Cam Fancher is out. So you had two guys who Scott Frost felt very confident in at the quarterback position. It wasn't like losing Jalon Daniels and having to put in Cole Ballard. Nothing against Cole Ballard, but Cole Ballard's not the same level of player as Jalon Daniels is. Cam Fancher and Taven Jackson, they're very similar in terms of their talent level and how confident Scott Frost was in having them at the quarterback position. So if you're going to have a quarterback exit the game, this is probably the worst situation that you want to be in because they have just as good of a backup as they do as their first string guy. Now, in terms of momentum, I think that was great for Kansas because, like you said, with Jalen Dye hitting him, Trey Lathan scooping up the ball and getting it at the 1 yard line, that was the takeaway that you were talking about last week in terms of Kansas needs to win the turnover battle and they need to get good field position. That kind of killed two birds with one stone right there. And that's the difference in the game in terms of the score. That absolutely was the difference. Kansas won by a touchdown, and Kansas wouldn't have gotten that touchdown if Jalen Dye wouldn't have gotten back there and gotten the sack, forced the fumble, and Trey Lathan wouldn't have picked it up.
Cincinnati last week, they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah.
And we think now, and I've kind of been hot on their tail, we think they've got one of the better rosters in the Big 12 when you look at their offensive line and some of the guys on the outside, at least on the offensive side. Texas Tech next week, they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, certainly one of the best rosters in the Big 12. This UCF team, and this is why it was so important for Kansas to win, whether it's Jackson or Fancher, these aren't top-tier guys.
Right.
Kansas needed to win this game because they have better players than UCF. They had to go out and execute, and UCF does have some good players. Again, Montgomery was great, particularly in the first quarter, but Kansas got it done. And also want to turn your eyes toward the third down conversion rate. We'll talk about KU offensively still struggling on that front, but UCF was just 4 of 15, and they were 2 of 4 on fourth downs, including their last 2 fourth down conversion attempts, which Kansas stopped them and ultimately won the game. So that's the story. Second and goal at the 1. KU gets 3 stops. I don't know what the percentage is, but the chances of any team not scoring a touchdown when it's second and goal at the 1, when they've got 3 cracks at it, not very good.
Yeah.
And KU got it done, and they were able to finally be the ones who feel good after a one-possession game. Flip to the offensive side a little bit, and third down.
By the way, I wanted to touch on just one more thing before we flip on. I wanted to give a shout out to the secondary because Austin Alexander had, obviously Jalen Dye's sack was probably the biggest play of the game. I think Austin Alexander in coverage at the end of the game when that PBU happened, that was the play where you see that 1,000 times and you go, oh, there it is. Kansas just lost the game. Austin Alexander was able to get over and swat that ball down. And I wanted to show this stat. UCF, they only had 2 passes over 20 yards the entire game. One of them was a 20-yarder. One of them was a 22-yarder. So the secondary did an excellent job of shutting down that really lengthy wide receiver room that they had, because I talked about it. That was a little bit of a mismatch in terms of just pure height, right? They have these tall, lengthy guys who are able to get up and high point the ball over some of our guys, and I thought the secondary did an excellent job in terms of coverage.
And tackling really improved. I thought it was funny.
Yes.
Lance Leipold brought that up. A really good point, because this is all about perspectives. At the press conference earlier today, and you're going to hear that tomorrow on Rock Chalk Sports, but he said, okay, if somebody like Jalon Daniels is able to break tackles and evade tacklers and all that sort of thing, well, that's because he's so talented, so good.
Yeah.
But if the other team's quarterback does that, or if the other team's running back, as was the case in the first quarter on Saturday, does that, then all of a sudden we can't tackle. Right? It's not that he's really talented, right? It's just the KU
we suck.
Crimson and Blue perspective on that. But yeah, tackling needs to improve, and it really, really did in the second half. And want to shout out Leroy Harris as well. Twice on third down, Leroy Harris with a pass breakup at the
Huge.
line of scrimmage. Love that. Offensively, you mentioned JD. It was kind of strange because usually KU's touchdowns don't come from the tight red zone inside the 5,
Yeah.
inside the 10. They come on bigger plays. But in this scenario, it was all Leshon Williams scoring, and nice seeing him be able to contribute and plunge through from inside the 5, 3 different occasions. And JD played mistake-free football on the road in a tough environment. It's not to say that he couldn't have gotten a touchdown or two had the ball fallen that way, but it just didn't. KU happened to be inside the red zone, and they were much better in the red zone. Another key we talked about, they finished off those drives with the 3 Williams touchdowns. Maybe Leshon Williams isn't the most dynamic player out there, but he needs to be relied upon to make sure that KU has that important element of the run game. Cam Pickett, also his best game since the opener against Fresno State, led the team with 5 catches, 64 yards. KU still struggled a little bit on third down, 3 of 11. That's something that they want to improve on, and would have loved to see them pick up that 3rd and 4 late to ice the game, but thankfully the defense answered the call. And again, how about the special teams? Finn Lappin, again, twice having to punt from his own end zone, had no issue. And Money Marjan does it again, hits both of his field goals, all of his PATs. He's still perfect on the season. All of that matters in this 7-point win.
Yeah, 33-yarder and a 41-yarder, Lance Marjan. I mean, it's so interesting because throughout the years of Kansas football, you'd see a guy roll out there for a 41-yarder and be like, well, we'll see. You know, it's kind of a coin flip, right? But with Lance Marjan, he's the best kicker that we've had in, 10, 15 years probably. So you feel confident in that guy. Finn Lappin, like you said, I mean, he averaged 45 yards per punt. He had a 49-yarder and just did an excellent job, especially, getting Kansas out of that bad field position whenever he absolutely needed to. But back to the offensive side of the ball, look, Emmanuel Henderson, he had 5 receptions for 53 yards. He did have a 24-yarder, but I had talked about this on Friday about how Kansas needed to win in those intermediate passing games and try to find those soft spots in the zones or break free from their men, trying to do those slants, kind of work in the inside of the field. And they absolutely did that, right? You didn't see those home run balls. Yeah, you saw a couple of long ones. Cam Pickett had a 38-yarder. Bowden Gruen had a 46-yarder, but none of them were the 93-yarders like you saw with Emmanuel Henderson against Cincinnati. So you saw some home run balls, but I think they did a great job in terms of finding those soft spots in those zones and really taking advantage of that UCF defense. Because look, like you said, base layer, if you look at both of these squads, Kansas has a better team through and through at virtually every single position, right? I think Kansas has a better quarterback, obviously, better wide receivers. They have, a better linebacking crew. They have better guys coming off the edge on the defensive side of the ball. The game shouldn't have been this close, but Kansas did what it took to be able to come out of this one victorious. And like you said, Jalon Daniels played mistake-free football throughout that game.
Yeah, it was important to get the win, and certainly a win that we needed for 2025, and didn't see it a lot in 2024 where KU was able to win these close games, but they got it done. Hawks are 4-2, 2-1. Big one coming up in West Texas on Saturday at 6:30. After this, we're going to be joined by Kevin Flaherty from the Kansas City Sports Network to talk all things KU football and basketball. You're watching Rock Chalk Sports and listening to ESPN Kansas City, kansasnation.com.
This is Daniel Leshon, and you're watching kansasnation.com.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here on kansasnation.com, and thanks for listening on ESPN Kansas City. Shout out as well to Miles Schneider and everybody over at Crown Automotive, great partners in helping make this possible. All right, we're going to be bringing on Kevin Flaherty right now from the Kansas City Sports Network. Kevin, thanks for coming in. Of course, saw you a little bit earlier today at Coach Leipold's press conference. Unfortunate news about Deshaun Hanukkah, who's going to be out for the year, and we'll get into that. But hey, let's talk about that win late Saturday night. A victorious flight back for the guys, 27-20. KU was the one who got the stop, right? I mean, there were some bad memories that came into our mind when UCF had the ball on the last possession. You felt okay that you were up by 7, but the defense really answered the call at the end.
Yeah, for sure. And there's no such thing as an ugly win, right, guys? They all count the
Right.
same
Yeah.
in that column. But at the same time, it was one of those games where things just didn't go perfectly on either side of the ball, right? The offense had 2 of their best drives of the season in the first half to kind of keep them hanging around, but the defense wasn't playing well. And the second half, the script kind of flipped where the defense is playing just lights out, doesn't allow a single point in the second half. UCF has -1 yards in the third quarter.
Yeah.
But then the offense gets a field goal. And then a field goal, and you're kind of sitting there getting a little anxious, right? Like, hey, this is a game it feels like you should be putting away if the offense is playing like it was in the first half, and the defense makes another play, forcing the fumble, setting up the easy touchdown to take the lead, and then the defense holds in some key situations. And so, well, what a great close by the defense, but also I can't imagine how big that is for a lot of those guys' confidence levels that they were able to pull it out like that.
Well, absolutely. And hey, I mean, the defense had a chance to get those 2 stops at the end and kind of be the story because Kansas had the lead, and Kansas had the lead because of a huge play by the defense.
Yep.
We haven't been getting the takeaways. We don't talk enough about the Dye brothers. Jalon Dye got an opportunity. We know that KU hasn't been fully whole at the safety position, but he clocks Taven Jackson, and Lathan picks it up. KU one play, touchdown, and that's the story of the game. I mean,
Yep.
how often does it come down to takeaways? And there's a lot we're going to break down. There's some big plays, some bat downs by Leroy, the impact that Bengali had, but that takeaway setting up KU was massive.
The flip side too is I thought it was a masterful game from Jalon Daniels without the stats to kind of back that up, because he didn't put the ball at risk, right? Like, this is a game that if Kansas tied in the turnover margin, or worse, lost the turnover margin, you probably lose the game. And instead, Kansas is perfect from a turnover standpoint. You force one turnover that leads to a touchdown, and ultimately you win by 7 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Flaherty, KCSN, joins the show here in studio. And Kevin, I wanted to continue to talk about the defensive side of the ball, because I guess if you look at that West Virginia game, right,
Yep.
and Henry had brought this up, he goes, oh, wow, this is the best defense that Lance Leipold has ever had. And then next game, you see the Cincinnati game where same old story. Kansas not able to finish out the game, gave them too much time with 1:45 left on the clock. Now Kansas comes out against UCF and they do what they're supposed to do and close out the game. Do you think that this game is going to give them enough momentum to where they go, okay, we figured it out? Or do you still kind of feel like, okay, maybe the 2-minute defense woes are going to continue to creep on in, especially later in? Or do you think that, hey, look, they've got it figured out, they've done what they needed to do to figure out the 2-minute defense?
Yeah, I think they're still a little walking wounded at safety, in order for somebody to be able to say, hey, they've got it figured out. They're going to be so much better from here on out. And I think that there are teams that are going to be better equipped than UCF to kind of exploit what Kansas is seeing on the back end and the struggles that they have. One of the things that I brought up with Michael Swain was we were sitting here talking about how deep this safety room is and how versatile it is, right? Like, Lyric Rawls is different than Taylor Davis, is different than Mason Ellis, is different than Jalon Dye. They all have very different skill sets, and that's great until you start losing some of those guys, because then all of a sudden it's, well, Taylor Davis went out. You don't really have a classic center field safety like Taylor Davis on the roster, somebody who's as good at that as he is. And so all of a sudden you're asking guys like Lyric Rawls, who I think is maybe even an all Big 12 level safety when you put him in the box, you're asking him to play 12 or 13 yards off the ball because you just don't have as many safeties. And so you're taking him away from what he's really good at. And it's by necessity. It's not like you have a choice in the matter, and asking him to do some things that maybe he isn't as good at. And so I do think that, yes, they did figure some things out. I liked Lance's point about, as much as we all want to say Bengali Kamara was, the greatest player in the history of mankind in that second half, and he was really, really good. Kansas also just executed better defensively in the second half. You saw that with the defensive tackle group was playing better. You saw that they set the edges better, and the edges opposite Bengali Kamara better. They played more downhill in general. And so they did do some really nice things, but I still think there are some things that they're going to need to maybe solve, especially on the back end against teams that are maybe a little bit better equipped to exploit those issues.
And I wanted to ask you about Bengali Kamara, because obviously him coming in that second half, you look at what Miles Montgomery did just alone in the rush game. He had almost 100 yards, or if not 100 yards in the first half of action, then virtually nothing in the second half. How much of that was Bengali Kamara coming back out there? What did you see from him? Or do you think it's just coaching and Kansas is really good coming out of the locker room?
I think there's some of that, but I also think that it's funny because I hate taking KU football things and dropping them into KU basketball, because I feel like people are so basketball focused when it comes to KU. But you think about a guy who comes off the bench in basketball and he is just a hurricane of energy. And maybe he turns the ball over a couple times, but he also gets a couple steals, gets a couple offensive rebounds, and you look at it and you say, man, that guy coming in and just playing with his hair on fire kind of changed this game. And I thought that was Bengali Kamara.
Yeah.
And he wasn't perfect. There were a few plays where he went in the wrong spot. There were a couple plays where maybe he didn't finish off a tackle, but his energy level and playing downhill the way that he did, when he gets into the backfield and all of a sudden you're making the running back make a move 2 yards deep in the backfield versus making it after he's already gotten past the defensive line. Little things like that I thought really keyed that defensive effort, and it was contagious. I thought Kansas played kind of flat in the first half, especially early on defensively, and I felt like the defense played with a lot more intensity and necessity in the second half, and a lot of that was Bengali Kamara.
Kevin Flaherty joins the show. Yeah, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but 12 carries, 11 yards for Miles Montgomery, who looked like I said, Oklahoma Samaje Perine there for a while. But hey, let's talk about the special teams really quick. I mean, special teams is going to be a headline story if something goes wrong, always. And it's going to be a sidebar if something goes right, generally, barring a 66-yard game-winning kick or anything like that. But watching these games, you understand how important every play is. You understand the margin between winning and losing. Twice Finn Lappin had to punt from his own end zone and came through big. And then Marjan hasn't missed a kick all year. Those are important moments, not just for points on the board, not just for field position, but from a confidence standpoint. We haven't had weapons like this in a while, and that's huge, and that was a big part of the win as well.
Yeah, I feel like you need to knock on wood like Lance Leipold did when he got that question about Faith or about Laith Marjan not missing a kick. But no, it's interesting because I feel like in so many big games under Lance Leipold, the special teams have kind of been what's let Kansas down, whether it's a missed extra point, a missed field goal, a return. It's usually something. And I was looking at, Kelly Ford does like the advanced metrics where he looks at everything.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas has a top 25 special teams unit right now. And that's all special teams thrown together. And when you really start to look at it, the punting's been really good, right? Laith Marjan hasn't missed a kick. You've had a punt or a kick return for a touchdown.
Tate Nagy's been awesome.
An experience.
We know you're high on him,
you do not use the restroom when Tate Nagy is about to catch a punt. But the coverage teams have been pretty good too. And I think that when you look at that whole picture, and especially I don't want to look ahead, but we can do that. We aren't playing in the games a little bit. When you look specifically at why Kansas has lost to Kansas State in some of these years where Kansas has been as good, if not better than Kansas State, a lot of times it's been special teams, kind of letting Kansas down. Wouldn't this be appropriate with how good these special teams are if this is the year that Kansas gets over the top in that game? And maybe it's because you get a positive special teams play versus a negative one.
Oh man, you're making me excited just talking about that. That would be great to get a punt return touchdown, right? Because I mean, you look and just the last 2 years in that game, and we'll talk more, in the next couple of weeks after this Texas Tech game. But the Croft play, the Wilson play, those ones haunt us. And again, if Kansas had
a blocked extra point, run back, and you think about it, that doesn't seem like much. But at the end of the game, when KU drove down with Cole Ballard, and they were, I think, right around the red zone, you could have kicked a field goal for the tie, and instead you had to get a touchdown because of that extra point.
Right.
And so, there have been so many special teams plays that have not gone Kansas' way in that
15,
rivalry.
16 years, right? So, that would be great if not only Kansas gets the win, but if special teams is a big reason why when the Cats come here on October 25th. How about offensively? Kansas still just 3 of 11 on third down conversions. We understand that's an area they got to continue to improve on. But in the tight red zone, they were able to get it done. 3 rushing touchdowns from Leshon Williams. Your take on Leshon as a player, as a whole player, I guess, because he's not Devin Neal. We know that. It's okay saying that. But he still is someone who can provide that necessary element of a game for you. And again, it was big inside the 5, finding a way to win in the trenches as well and get 6 points.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Devin Neal because he is kind of Devin Neal-ish, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not Devin, but he brings some of the same things that made Devin such a special running back in terms of being able to make a guy miss sort of in a phone booth, being able to maximize a run, getting that extra yardage after contact. And no, he's not, Kansas's all-time leading rusher, but I do think that there are some things where Kansas has been more successful in the running game because Leshon Williams is able to supply some of those elements that Kansas has been used to getting from Devin Neal. And I think when you looked at Daniel Highshaw, even when he was healthier earlier this year, I thought he was pressing a little bit. I thought that he wasn't kind of relaxing it and letting sort of the natural ability take over. And Leshon has been a tremendous fit. And the number of times with his vision that, hey, the run is supposed to go through this gap, but he cuts back or he finds the right place to maximize that run is pretty high.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Flaherty, KCSN, joins the show here in studio. One more football question for you, Kevin, until we get to the big basketball weekend that was. Just looking at this next game against Texas Tech. Texas Tech, obviously, with all of their resources and their great coaching and all of the momentum that they have. If Kansas would have lost this UCF game, we probably will be looking at this Texas Tech game very differently as a, hey, you have to win this or else basically the season's over. Now you have a little bit less of that kind of in it, and you go, okay, well, now this can really turn the season around if you beat Texas Tech. What are you seeing out of Texas Tech? I mean, what have you seen throughout the year? We know their quarterback play has been really good. They have a very good defense. Just give us kind of a breakdown of what you've seen out of Texas Tech this year.
Yeah, Pro Football Focus grades aren't everything. They're imperfect, and they don't obviously have the play sheets to be able to tell, hey, this guy was supposed to be doing this when he was doing this. But when you look at the top 13 highest graded guys in the Big 12 in Pro Football Focus, almost half, 6, play for Texas Tech. And when you look at that defensive line, I think Kansas's defensive tackles have been really good. They've been one of the strengths of the team. The top rated defensive tackle on Kansas's roster on Pro Football Focus is Tommy Dunn. Tommy Dunn sits just below Texas Tech's 4th best defensive tackle.
That's crazy.
And so it's crazy the way that they were able to go out and build this roster is amazing. And I do think that they take some heat that maybe they shouldn't because Ohio State's doing this, different SEC schools are doing this, and nobody talks about it in a negative fashion. Ohio State won a national title last year because they went and got a quarterback and extra running back help and all the different things in the portal. But Texas Tech is a pretty loaded roster up and down. When you look at the receiver talent they have, the defensive line may be the best that Kansas has faced, and that includes Missouri, which is crazy because I thought that Missouri front was incredible.
Yeah, full of NFL guys. Yeah,
Texas Tech is better at linebacker probably than Missouri is, and so when you look at it, it's not just the talent; it's kind of the depth of talent that Texas Tech has. Now, the interesting thing for me is looking this week and then looking forward is Behren Morton going to be the guy to lead Texas Tech where they want to go? I'm not saying no. I mean, I think he's like a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12 right now in some different metrics. But when you're getting to the point of, hey, it's the Big 12 title game, hey, you're in the college football playoff, etc., is he the guy that is going to be good enough for them to continue to win? I think that question needs to be answered. But to your original question about the way that you look at this game, it totally changed because of that UCF game. You went from sweating bullets in oh my gosh, I can't believe we have to win in Lubbock, to what Leipold said today, whereas this is an opportunity, right? Like, you have nothing to lose in this case. You're a 2-touchdown underdog. Everybody expects you to go to Lubbock and lose. And so if you go to Lubbock, if you play really well, if you hang around and God forbid you win this game, all of a sudden it really changes the calculus of everything. And people aren't even really putting pressure on you to go do that, at least externally.
Yeah. I mean, well said, because there is that possibility that Kansas goes down and wins. I mean, I understand that Texas Tech has resources. I can't remember if we've talked about that or not.
I don't know.
They may have had a few resources.
Yeah.
I feel like somebody would have reported that by now.
You would think,
if
right?
If Kansas at the end of the season, Kevin, ends up, whatever their record is, whether it's 6-6, 8-4, 10-2, whatever it is, who knows? It could be anything at this point. I think no matter what, as long as Kansas is bowling, we're going to be looking back on October 4th, and we're going to be saying, man, that UCF win was massive
Yeah.
for this
Yes.
Kansas. And I understand it's
Almost
just
pivotal, yeah.
it's just a game in week 6, but again, how the season kind of turns, how the record looks is so different. The fact that Kansas got that done and they did it the way they did. So, yeah, really exciting. Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network, joins us. Kevin, how about Bill Self? I
Yeah.
mean, what a weekend, what a past 7 days it's been for Coach Self. You get Tay Kenny, we asked you about him last week. Then you get Trent Perry. Javon Bardwell commits. He's a guy 2027. And then Davion Atkins yesterday. 4 guys who are 4 stars or better, according to multiple outlets, making their way to Lawrence. Exciting times.
Yeah, the only person better at getting commitment right now than Bill Self is Dan Courtwright. So
Yeah, that's right.
and so,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
and so when you look at the guys that they got in it, and my understanding is Bardwell is going to probably try to work to be in that 26 class as well. And so you're really starting to stack bricks in that class. You know, Perry is a terrific program guy. And I feel like when you say that, it has such a negative connotation, but he's a great athlete, long wingspan, really defends, can slash. I think that he's somebody that has a chance to be a fan favorite as he sticks around for multiple years. When you look at Adkins, he's kind of the way I had him described to me by somebody who's seen him play in person is he's a Houston big man. You know, those guys that Houston always has that you're like, God, we can't keep these guys off the offensive glass. They're killing us. And so he is a pretty effective offensive rebounder. He's a bouncy guy, is sort of in that mold of he's not a 7-foot guy. You know, he's more of a Flory type player. And so when you look at that, and then you add Bardwell, who's a bouncy energy guy, can really score. Man, you're putting together a nice class, but not just a nice class, guys, but a class with pieces that seem to fit together, right? Like sometimes you have classes where it's like you brought in 3, 6, 7 wings who all do the same thing. Like
Right.
how is this going to work?
Yeah.
But in this case, you know, you're up in it. You got a point guard, you got a scoring wing, you got a wing who's probably going to be your defensive stopper, you know, maybe even fairly on, but you know, certainly into the future. And you get a guy that can do all the things that Bill Self wants a guy to do from that big man position in terms of having the mobility and the ability to move. And so just an unbelievable recruiting stretch for the Jayhawks right now.
And I know this is kind of an impossible question because we
Sure.
have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. But with all this talent coming in the class of 2026, do you think that's going to affect how much Kansas kind of looks at the transfer portal? Because we've seen over the last couple of years, Kansas went hard in the transfer portal and didn't necessarily pan out, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that they'd be ready to kind of hand the reins over to these freshmen, these young underclassmen kind of kids? Or do you think they try to maybe potentially recruit over them in the transfer portal if the right players are there? I mean, I guess like I said, it's an impossible question because we
Sure.
don't know who's going to transfer out. We don't know if people are going to be sticking around or whatever it may be. But just how do you think that kind of changes the way that Kansas is going to look at the transfer portal?
Yeah, I think the best way to use the transfer portal is in a couple ways. One is to fill a hole, obviously. If you know, hey, if we rolled out the basketball today, we don't have a 3. You know,
Yeah, right.
then you
Yeah.
go and get a 3.
Right.
But I think teams that go to the transfer portal looking for stars are often really found wanting because it's hard to project. And you look at a guy, and I'm not trying to pick on him. You look at a guy like AJ Storr that I think a lot of people projected stardom for when he came in. The other thing that we've typically seen just from a numbers standpoint is guys tend to really take a leap their second year after transferring. And so maybe you look at a guy who could help you, and you don't say, hey, this guy has to be all Big 12 this year. But we see that in him maybe in a couple years. You look at Kevin McCullough came in, was pretty good right
Yeah.
away, was an All-American type guy before he got hurt in that second season. And so I think you use the portal to fill holes, and then I think you use it to find maybe multi-year guys like that. But I don't know that you recruit over the guys that you already have, whether that's at the high school level, where I think most of your star power still comes from, or you have guys who are coming back on roster potentially like a Cole Rosario or somebody like that. And so if you see, hey, we're just deficient in this area, sure, but overall, I don't know that it's going to be a super huge portal class. I do expect them to use the portal to fill a few gaps, though.
Man, it's exciting getting these big splashes this time of
Yeah.
year as well. Late night coming up a week from Friday as well to officially kick off the 25-26 season before these guys head to campus. Kevin, tell us what you got going on Kansas City Sports Network, Pay Heed Podcast, and Verbal Commitment Podcast.
Well, honestly, we went out to Blue Springs South and Lee Summit North, which was just a ton of talent this past week, and got to see a linebacker out there in Prince Goldsby from Blue Springs South, who may wind up being a KU target. Guys, he's a linebacker. He ran 20.8 miles per hour with pads on during the game.
That's insane.
So obviously tremendous speed. And then this weekend, I'll actually be going to see KU commitment Tyron Parker in action.
Oh, nice.
So I'll have a little bit more on that after I see that one.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Kevin Flaherty, make sure you follow him on Twitter at KFlaherty, KCS. And Kevin, have a great week, man, and let's bring home a win from Lubbock.
Sounds good.
All right. After this, we're going to hear from Jalon Daniels and Leshon Williams after a victorious night in Orlando. You're watching Rock Chalk Sports on KansasNation.com and listening to ESPN Kansas City.
Hey, this is Cole Ballard, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here live in the Kansas Nation studio. Hey, let's hear from a couple stars of the game. Leshon Williams had 3 touchdowns, career high in KU's 27-20 victory over UCF. Jalon Daniels, solid as ever. Here, the quarterback, running back combination post-game.
Scoring 3 touchdowns in the game.
Oh, man, it's lovely. I think it's my first time. It's lovely. I got to give a huge shout-out to my O-line, tight ends, receivers, coach, all the coaches for trusting me to get them 1 or 2 yards, but it's lovely, though.
Coach Leipold was talking about you being a little banged up going to the game. How do you know when your body's like ready to go Saturday versus, when to push it?
I ain't got no choice. I got to push it every time. It ain't. I can't go out there and be like, oh, I'm banged up. They probably banged up too. Got to get the job done, though. So.
What was it like in that third quarter where the offense was executing well and you guys were able to take the lead?
Oh, it was great, man. I feel like we a great offense. I feel like we also got a great defense, as y'all seen today. Truthfully, it just always come down to us executing. I feel like if we not rolling, it's really us shooting ourselves in the foot, truthfully.
You mentioned the defense. What was it like for you guys on the sideline watching them get one stop and then have to get another stop soon after that?
I feel like it was like guys playing because we seen them do it before in practice, man. Them guys practice hard and everything. I feel like last week wasn't really a good showing of how they can finish games, and I feel like God gave them the opportunity today just to show the world that they can, and they did it, I think, 2 or 3 times. So yeah.
Speak on UCF's defense. I mean, what were we seeing from their D-line out there today? Were they able to get a lot of open hole, or your O-line be able to get a lot of open holes against their D-line?
I feel like UCF, they had a good all-around defense. I think my O-line did a good job of, getting to their doubles and winning their one-on-ones majority of the game. But I feel like them guys they put up a fight.
You guys have had a lot of plug-and-play opportunities where guys have had to expand up. How important is that mentality and that readiness to take over?
You gotta be ready. We don't want to have a drop off from anybody. It's a physical game, from at all positions, especially running back. So that's one of our main things. We want to all make sure everybody ready and be next man up mentality.
Jalon, what was it like seeing the defense get those 2 late stops?
It was wonderful. I mean, to be able to see the level of resilience that our defense has carried, knowing that we had to go out there to be able to get a stop. We had 100% faith in our defense, and they went out there and handled their business.
Jalon, how's it feel to kind of win a close one-score game like that?
Man, it feels great. At the end of the day, like I tell y'all every single week, the only category we worry about statistically is the win-loss category, and we were able to get that 1-0 this week. So now, we're going to go ahead and celebrate for the next 24 hours, but at the end of the day, we know we have a great opponent next week that's coming up. So, we're going to take in these 24 hours, but at the end of the day, come Monday, it's time to go get to work again.
And when you guys were down 14-0, how do you keep yourself from getting ahead of yourself, like trying to do too much, etc.?
Y'all seen us down 14-0 before. I mean, especially a lot of y'all been here since I've been here in 2022. Where y'all seen a lot of games where we went down 14-0 and we were still able to come back and win. And I think tonight was a lot reminiscent of that. And it was great to be able to say that we were able to come out with a win tonight in a close game.
Well, halftime, what's coach's message to you guys as a team?
At the end of the day, we knew that there were plays that we left out on the field. It wasn't our cleanest half of ball, but at the end of the day, we know what we continue to harp every single day, which is, stay resilient. No matter if we were up 30 or down 30, we have to go out there and be able to treat every single play like it's a 1-0 mentality, and that's exactly what we did. We went out there and handled business.
Jalon, battling the rain a little bit tonight.
Yeah.
Does that affect you at all, or is it just business as usual?
I mean, it didn't really affect me at all. If you want me to be honest, I felt like every single time it rained, their offense was on the field. So it seemed like it was storming every time they get on the field, and we get on the field. It was dry. So I wiped off my visor a little bit and went out there and played ball.
Just for either of you guys' first road win of the year, I mean, what are the emotions like when you get to conquer a hostile environment?
I mean, it's always a great feeling. I mean, you can't really explain more than the fact that we got the opportunity to go 1-0 today. Though it wasn't a home game, it was an away game, and we feel great about it.
Anything else for Jalon or Leshon?
All right, now y'all have a good one. Rock chalk.
Thank you.
That's Jalon Daniels and Leshon Williams post game. Interesting, Dan. Jalon Daniels is relied upon so much, and I thought the telecast brought up a great point regarding KU football this year. It's just how it is. Kansas needs their quarterback more than most other teams need their quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily
talk about the head of the snake.
Yeah,
right?
You don't necessarily love when he takes hits, but at the same time, you want him to play freely. And this is one of those rare games where we're not talking about Jalon Daniels' stats, but he played really well. It just so happened, like we talked about in the open, that in the tight red zone, KU was able to have success and score with Leshon Williams and the ground game. But again, incredible poise shown by KU's QB1. Still had solid numbers, still did what he needed to do, and it's about time that he got some help at game point, right?
Yes.
And the defense sure answered the call.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, you look at the stats, right? Jalon didn't have any touchdowns. It's essentially because he didn't need to throw any touchdowns because Kansas was that good in the red zone with Leshon Williams having 3 touchdowns, his first 3-touchdown game, his first multi-touchdown game in his collegiate career. So you love to see Leshon Williams be able to step up and find his footing. Now, obviously, we wanted Daniel Highshaw to be out there, but Leshon Williams is barely a step down, if even a lateral step from Daniel Highshaw, at least from what we've seen in over these last couple games. So you feel really good about that. But back to what you're saying about Jalon. Jalon is absolutely the head of the snake, as you like to refer to it, and he's done such a good job of keeping his poise. And we're not seeing those mistakes that we saw last year from Jalon. He's really matured as a player and as a person.
Yeah, he has. And we talked in the open about the law firm of Finkley and Brinkley defensively.
Yes.
Law firm on the offense, Gruen and Brune.
Yeah.
Nice seeing them show their athleticism and a couple nice catches. Bowden Gruen came through with 2 big catches in the first half when KU didn't have a lot going on offensively. 27-20, Hawks are 4-2, 2-1 in Big 12 play. After this, Case of the Mondays here on Rock Chalk Sports. Thanks for watching KansasNation.com and listening to ESPN Kansas City.
This is Daniel Highshaw, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
5 o'clock hour here on Rock Chalk Sports with Dan Courtwright. I am Sean Kellerman. Hey, it's time for our Case of the Mondays segment. Thanks for watching on KansasNation.com. We're going to start our Case of the Mondays segment with every single woman in the world.
That's right, partner.
Daniel Courtwright
Off
is
the market.
no longer on the market.
Lose my number.
Dan, why don't you break this down? The unbelievable moment that happened between you and your lovely bride-to-be.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, this weekend I proposed to my girlfriend, now my fiance, which I have to get used to saying that.
Isn't it cute?
I know, it's a little weird. I feel French. It's nice. But yeah, I popped the question this weekend. It was a lot of fun.
And I believe her lawyers are going to
get
back to you on the answer?
Yes. So she said her lawyers will reach out to me. They'll have an answer by the end of the week next week. So fingers crossed.
Yes. But that was the end of the week next week.
Yeah. So it'll be next week. They said it takes a while. It'll be coming in the mail. So however long the postal service, government shutdown. I mean, who knows how long that's going to take, right? So, like I said, fingers crossed. Her lawyers did tell me to stay away for that amount of time. So we'll see. We're still working out the whole restraining order thing. But yeah, I popped the question. It was great. Took her to this I guess it's not little, it's big. This red gazebo, South Park on Mass Street. Had her best friend hiding in the bushes, taking pictures. It was great. And then, walked up to this little garden area by the Watkins Museum, just kind of strolling up and down Mass Street. Weirdly enough, the first place we went into, just because it was the closest one, we went to that Mockingbird Lane. It's kind of like a weird goth.
Can't say I've been there.
I had never been there either. And we were all just like giggly and bubbly. And she's like, "You want to go in here?" And I was like, "Yeah, fine." Yeah. We walked in and there was like like I don't know, like weird, like mice, like dead mice.
What?
Like I don't know. It was weird. It was a weird. Shout out to that
The sun
place, man.
does
But
shine a little bit brighter on that day. Like the day I proposed, it was very much like you're just happy.
I know it was great. Well, and that, I was telling you this off air, and I was telling Kevin too. Like I was watching the KU UCF game through like rose-colored glasses. Like I know there was a lot. It was definitely a roller coaster of a game, but like I was like, it'll be fine. Like I was like, who cares? You know, just like on that day, because it happened about 2 hours before the KU UCF game. But we actually went up to the Eldridge and had some
very nice
some champagne. So that was very nice. We haven't done any planning so far, which is good.
That's coming.
Yes. We told all of my family. Basically, they said they have 2 stipulations: don't do Las Vegas in July, and they said don't do Alaska in January.
Okay,
so
I think that's
those are the only
doable.
2 stipulations, because my sister had her wedding in Vegas in July outside.
Oh no!
It was horrible. I officiated that wedding, and I was sweating through my shirt.
You were a sweaty mess.
Yeah, so we'll do it inside because I'm a sweaty guy. But yeah, no planning so far. Started to make a list of maybe people to come. I have to whittle it down quite a bit.
Down to about a dozen. Hey, if you want to tell me now, just tell me. I'm not invited. Just tell me.
Well, you're on a short list. I mean,
short list of a short list.
So I've whittled it down, and you're still technically in. I think
You whittled it down to 600, and I'm still there.
Yes. So we're gonna call you if we need a ride.
Okay, that works. That works. Well, hey, congratulations. That's very exciting.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Dan and Piper.
Case of Mondays for all the single ladies out there.
I know. I wanted to say this.
Guy
I wanted to say the single ladies.
Back off, ladies.
In the tri-state area, but we'll just go. I mean, everywhere. There's a collective tear being shed. We'll just put it that way.
By the way, I put out a tweet. I thought it was a silly, funny tweet on Twitter about it.
Oh man, you were taking some heat for that too.
I was
from
taking
our
some
friends
heat
out
for
west.
it. Yeah, so I tweeted. I was just a silly, thing. I said Piper now has more rings than any K-State athlete, and man, K-State people were not thrilled. Which by the way,
as long as they didn't say anything hateful toward you or Piper.
No, nothing like that. But they were saying like, oh, look at that tiny ring. Oh, you're rent free, all that kind of stuff. Which I brought that upon myself. I incited it, and so I deserve all of that. I get it. It's funny, and it's all in good nature. So, but yeah, K-State fans were not thrilled about that tweet. They're like, oh man, focus on your engagement. Blah 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 blah. I was like, do you know what I do for a job? Like I don't know. It's fine. But yeah, I wasn't thinking about K-State while I was proposing to my girlfriend. It was a thing that popped up later, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a funny thing to say. I'll say that. Yeah, it's going for a little. I mean, that's that. You know that I spend majority of my life just doing it for the bit.
Well,
basically.
Sounds like a fantastic Saturday, and I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it.
It was great.
And,
it was so funny though, because afterwards she goes, well, what do you want to do now? And I said, you're gonna hate this, but we gotta watch the game. I want to sell. Like, we'll go get champagne, and we'll go do all this stuff. I was like,
right.
He's on at 6:30.
Right. Just FYI.
We gotta watch that game. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Well, exciting stuff. Hey, let's get into this on the sports side of things. We talked about this a little bit. The Open. I mean, I guess I'll let you start, and then I'll expand on the Arizona Cardinals situation yesterday.
Yes. So
former TCU great Amari DiMercato.
Yes, he was really good at TCU. So apparently, the Arizona Cardinals were playing against the Tennessee Titans, the 0-4 Tennessee Titans. Cardinals are 2-2, by the way, but they're 0-3 over their last couple of games. Now, after this Titans game, they were up 21-6, 3rd and 1, 4th quarter, 12:40 left to go in the game. You're up 2 touchdowns. Amari DiMercato. Let's see, how long of a run was this? This is a 72-yard run for Amari DiMercato.
Notice you didn't say touchdown.
No, I did not say touchdown, because Amari DiMercato breaks free, gets there all the way to the end zone, takes the ball. We've seen it. How many times have we seen this over the last 10 years? It just happens all the time. He was celebrating. He flips the ball out of his hands right before he breaks the plane, goes out back of the end zone. It winds up being a touchback. The Tennessee Titans get the ball back, and then the unthinkable. starts to happen.
Yeah.
A string of unfortunate things happen for the Arizona Cardinals in this game.
Still, in this situation, first of all, and there's a little bit of salt with this comment, but
by the way,
angles I saw looked like he still had the football.
You think so? Okay,
yes.
Maybe he did. I
if
don't
the
know.
rule is the ball has to be in possession while he crosses the plane, just the nose of the football, he still has possession of it from what I can see. But it seems like they didn't fight it too much. They're probably thinking it's the Titans. We're still going to win. And that's the bottom line. You still should have won that game.
Absolutely.
So the fact that he didn't score technically, which would have made it 28-6 in the fourth quarter, combined with the fact that then Tennessee got 3 possessions, which they needed to win this game, and scored on all 3, it's unfathomable. But
it absolutely is. Well, also, I wanted
worse.
One thing on Amari DeMarcado is that he was their third-string running back. He had to have James Conner and Trey Benson both go down, and he breaks off a 72-yarder.
Plus, they have Michael Carter, who got most of the carries.
That's right. And he finally gets his big break in the NFL. He breaks free
and
to
he drops
seal
the football.
The game. Drops the football, and
you gotta wait. Just wait. People just need to have the mindset of I'm not going to drop the ball until I get all the way 10 yards into the end zone. Until I run out the back of the end. Just
have
hold
the
on
ball
to the
in
ball
your hands and then give it back to the referee.
Moral of the story.
I like celebrations, but
is he lost the ball according to the officials. 21-6. It's still the Titans. They're terrible. You're still at home. It's the fourth quarter. Cam Ward goes down and gives up a touchdown. They missed the 2-pointer, though. So you're still up 2 possessions. So it's 21-12. So you're still in good shape. It's the Titans.
Right.
Then Arizona has to punt it away. And I am extra salty because, as I said a little bit earlier, I lose my survivor pick with Arizona, which shouldn't have even been in question. And the Titans get it back after the punt. Cam Ward throws a pick. He throws a pick to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
They get it. They try to advance the ball, fumble the football. Somehow the ball ends up back in the end zone, and Tyler Lockett, of all people, falls on it.
Yeah.
And it's 21-19 after the PAT. And then at that point, I'm thinking it's over. They're going to lose. At that point, I had accepted they're going to lose. I told my wife, I was like, these are 2 of the most unlikely scenarios that ever happen in a football game. This team's going to lose.
An interception for a fumble
that results in a touchdown. Where the offensive team ends up falling on a fumble for a touchdown after a guy had a 72-yard touchdown that turns into a touchback. 21-9, it's over. And sure enough, the Cardinals do what you shouldn't do, which is they ran the ball 3 times. They ran it 3 times, 1st and 10, 2nd and 8. They're trying to make them burn their timeouts. You're only up by 2. You can't give them the ball back.
No.
I don't care how bad the Titans are. And sure enough, 3rd and 8, they run it again. You need to pass the ball there to try to get a first down. You get a first down, you win the game.
Game's over.
Totally. Yeah. And they run the ball again, and they punt. Why would you ever do that? It's 3rd and 8. You need a first down to win, or you can not get a first down and have a pretty good chance to lose. You need to throw the ball and forfeit the fact that they get to keep their timeout or whatever. But sure enough, not only did the Titans go down and score, but they get inside the 5 to the point where they can do whatever they want with the clock to make sure it runs out.
Yeah.
Kick an easy field goal and win. But I'm just like, I'll never get over that. The fact that that's how I lost Survivor. Granted, people who had Cardinals money line or anything like that probably lost a lot of money rather than
right.
Lost
Usually in
zero,
a survivor pool, yeah.
Yeah, but you know how it goes when it's like a free entry. You just assume you lost the amount of money that
right.
you could have won.
You look at the prize money. You go, dang it. Does that go down as an interception for Cam Ward? By the way.
Yeah,
I
was an interception, and they tried to advance it. I need to watch it again, but it hurts too much.
I guess I didn't look. I have Cam Ward on my fantasy team. I know everyone cares about my fantasy team.
But how do you still have him? He's terrible.
Well, I'm in a super flex, so he's my second. He's my other flex position.
His numbers are awful though.
It's a 15-person league.
Still.
He's all that was left. The best available right now is Blake Sims. Do you even know what team he's on right now?
I don't.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
That's all I got. So yeah, I guess I didn't really look on that. Man, Arizona Cardinals 0-3 in their last 3 games. That is rough.
Blake Sims.
Sims.
Anyway, yeah, I had to Google
Shout
him.
out.
Figure out who he is.
Hey, Case of the Mondays for Skycam operators. So if I had a nickel for every time a football hit a Skycam cable this week,
2 nickels?
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. So I wanted to start with the London game. The Minnesota Vikings, by the way, under did not hit.
Yeah, the late touchdown.
Vegas
was all over that, wasn't it? -3.5.
I think so.
Yeah. And they win by 4. Vegas was all over
that great line, by the way. But Sean's favorite appetizer, the London games in the NFL.
8:30 a.m.
Apparently, so Reichard, the Minnesota Vikings kicker, if you may recall, he kicked a ball, I believe it was in the third quarter of the game, kicked the ball, and if you slow it down, it looks like the ball was headed towards the goalpost, and it grazed the wire, the Skycam wire, and it hooked right. Now, the Minnesota Vikings did wind up winning, so good for them. But that, if the Minnesota Vikings wind up losing that game, and I'm
I'd have been livid.
If I'm Kevin McConnell, like, I'm going to the front office. I'm knocking on Roger Goodell's door, being like, get this Skycam out of here. So that's the first scenario where that happens. Second one was in the Jets-Cowboys game. Justin Fields smoked a dude in the face mask. So he reached back, throws the ball, hits guy in the face mask, bounces all the way up, and it hits the Skycam directly in the lens. But here's the thing, for the Cowboys, it could have potentially been an interception because they had a guy tracking the ball, and it hits the Skycam, falls straight down, winds up being an incomplete pass.
Yeah.
But just like, I can't believe this has never been a thing until now, and it happened twice in 1 week where the football hit the Skycam, or at least the cable and the Skycam. You have to start having a conversation of like, hey, do you potentially either A, get rid of it, or B, have it higher up, right? Because I don't want to get rid of this guy, Cam. You remember that Cordell Patterson,
cool.
Cordell Patterson
money and everything.
kickoff return when he was with the Vikings, the greatest shot of all time in football. I will go down saying that, but also it's like, it's a little dangerous.
Yeah.
Like I think it could potentially change some games, and you probably want to do something about it before it does wind up changing some games.
Yeah, it's dangerous, and you can't have that on the field of play, right?
Right.
I mean, that you can't have it affect the game as is. There's
Well, it's kind of like a couple years ago, or not a couple years ago, whenever AT&T Stadium opened up. Remember how they thought the Jumbotron was too low, and there was punters like intentionally trying to hit the Jumbotron. It's like, well, they can't really do anything about that.
Yeah.
But the Skycam, you can. You can do something about that.
You can, yeah.
So I don't know. It is fascinating to me. Case of the Mondays for St. John's.
I saw this. Do you believe it?
I think I do. So this is coming from Nick from Norwood. He's a college hoops insider. Doesn't seem like a troll at all. And also this came from Tony Patalis, CBI bracketology expert. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. But apparently there was a secret scrimmage. St. John's played UMass Lowell.
Yes.
Not even
UMass Lowell could put up some points.
Not
man.
even UMass.
Don't even add. You know college basketball's coming, and I'm going to be hitting you with these 350 plus teams that you've never heard of.
Exactly. So apparently, St. John's and UMass Lowell, they had a secret scrimmage. St. John's lost 83-40.
I just don't believe.
You don't believe this? So this Nick from Norwood guy seems like a legitimate source. He doesn't seem like a troll. He doesn't seem like a Sentinel type of person, right? Also, this Tony Patalis, he just CC'd him on it. It didn't do, he didn't report it. He's also, Rick Pitino said that it was the worst secret scrimmage he's ever coached, apparently.
So, okay, maybe it happened. Maybe the score happened, but there's no way St. John's was playing Bryce Hopkins and Zuby Ejiofor and all those guys.
See, that's the thing. It's like it was a secret scrimmage, so obviously nobody was able to see it. And I don't know how many of St. John's actual guys were out there, or if they were just chucking up threes, or they were just kind of phoning it in, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Or maybe UMass Lowell is a sleeping giant.
Or maybe it's something that was intentionally done by guys like Pitino to get his players' attention. It could be. That seems like an old school coaching thing to do, right? Like, hey, don't forget about UMass Lowell.
Right.
I don't know, man. I love that basketball is back. I mean, bring it on. Bring on all the secret scrimmages. Bring on UMass Lowell against Canisius, man. I'm here for it. Case of the Mondays for Henry Greenstein, KUSports.com, LJWorld.com, and the rest of the AP voters. Dan Greenstein and his comrades voted Texas and Penn State 1 and 2 in the preseason AP poll. And now it's the first time since the AP poll expanded to 20 teams back in 1968 that both have been unranked in the same week.
Wow.
Texas, of course, lost at Florida. Kind of surprised. I mean, they were ranked 9th, right?
A little bit, yeah.
And they dropped completely out.
Yeah, it was a little bit surprising because it was in the swamp against an SEC school.
They were small favorites.
I told you I was still in on DJ Lagway,
yeah.
but also Arch Manning isn't necessarily turning out to what we all kind of thought.
Yeah,
he would
Texas
be,
fans
so.
are apologizing for asking Sark to start Manning over Ewers last year, but yeah, and then Penn State. More on them here in a second. Wow, absolutely brutal. I was thinking about what I said last week that people were calling James Franklin the Drew Aller of head coaches. I was trying to think, is that funnier or less funny? Like if you call Drew Aller the James Franklin of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I don't know which is funnier, but it works.
That is hilarious.
But
I
yeah,
like
Texas unranked now. How about that? I mean, they've got to be. Are they 26th? I got to look at that. Because
they might be. I mean, they're
that
probably
is a
receiving
long,
votes. You would
long
think.
drop.
Which, by the way, they shouldn't have been in it. Like Penn State shouldn't have been in.
They're
27th.
You know who 26th is? Cincinnati.
Ah, good for them.
Yeah, I thought they would.
That's surprising that they're not ranked. I would have figured that they were ranked. They just beat Iowa State.
Yeah.
So whatever. I don't know.
Not surprising to me, man. You know I've been on. I literally said it's Arizona State from last year, a week or two ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
And then I saw an article after they beat Iowa State. Is Cincinnati the new
Arizona State?
I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
So I need them to keep winning so that I look smart. But
I like
anyway.
that. No, I like that a lot. Speaking of Penn State, it's Case of the Mondays for Penn State, James Franklin, all those guys. They go down to the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, and they lose to the Fighting Nico Iamaleava. By the way, shout out to Jim Neuheisel, Rick Neuheisel's son.
Man, that dude, first team all hair.
That's first team all hair for sure. Yeah, he's got that silky blonde hair. This is, by the way, there's a spin on this that I want to say. Is Deshaun Foster the problem?
Well,
was Deshaun Foster the problem?
He needed to tell people where the campus was located.
Sure. Once everyone figured out that UCLA was in LA, then I think that once they figured that out, that's when they got good. But UCLA,
I know a lot of people don't know a lot about us here in the Big Ten, UCLA football, but
we're in LA.
We're in LA.
So UCLA was 0-4 going into this game.
South
the Nittany Lions were
USC.
Yeah, the Nittany Lions were 3-1. They just were coming off a loss against Oregon, which is a good program, right? I have a stat for you. So you have to start thinking, because James Franklin, I actually saw a tweet about this, said James Franklin makes a living of living in the top 10, but never being able to beat anybody in the top 10.
Yeah.
UCLA interim head coach Tim Skipper now is tied with James Franklin with one career top 10 win against a Big Ten opponent. Yeah. Tim Skipper has been the head coach at UCLA for one game. James Franklin, however, has been the head coach at Penn State for a lot more than one game.
It's us and USC. No, James Franklin 4-21 all time against top 10 opponents. And yeah, now he's completely out of the top 25. So he doesn't have to worry about being in the top 10 anymore.
So if you're Penn State,
I think he's done after this year.
You think so? I mean,
I think so.
You'd have to, because like
that is a lot of games.
Well, if you remember, like Ryan Day was kind of in this weirdly the same boat because he just could never beat Michigan. Right. So it's like, oh, well, I think that Ryan Day winning that national championship last year kind of saved his job, weirdly enough, even though Ohio State has consistently been a top 5 program throughout the Ryan Day tenure.
Yeah.
So it's just like, look, if you can't bring them to the national prominence that you once wanted to be at, and I thought Penn State actually had a good shot of going to the national championship last year. I really thought that was going to be when James Franklin turned it around, because I thought, oh, well, certainly, I think it's just been bad luck. I don't think it's been bad luck. I think James Franklin just cannot do it. I think Penn State still has enough pull in terms of historical value, right? Being of national prominence, money-wise, they have a lot of money coming into Penn State, that they get all these really good, solid recruits, but they just can't win. They just cannot win against these top 10, even top 25 teams.
I feel like a change is probably going to happen. We'll have to see. I mean, and they also, like, we keep talking about that stat, but the team they lost to was 0-4.
Right. Though that's the thing. That's the crazy thing. It's like, sure. You can look at all the top 10 losses that they had.
But the team they most recently lost to was 0-4. They were massive favorites.
They just fired their head coach. and they were 0-4. And you go to their place, and not
He
only
blamed travel, by the way,
Huh?
because he had to go from Happy Valley to wherever UCLA is, which I think is.
Is it in LA?
I got no idea.
It's in LA, I think.
yeah.
42-37, and it wasn't particularly close throughout the entire game. I mean, Penn State managed to kind of crawl their way back, but
Nico always had an answer.
man, Nico, I am a Leva. Maybe he is a good quarterback. Maybe he is worth $4 million. Who knows? Who knows? Who am I to say? Man. Case of Mondays for K-State. This was an excellent game.
Yeah.
So K-State wound up losing to Baylor 35-34 down in Waco.
Avery
Tough
Johnson throws a pick six, man, late. That's a killer.
That is a killer. But I will say this. This is one of the craziest things that I've seen. So K-State was down 31-32. Avery Johnson throws a dot to Jace Brown. Jace Brown gets wide open, presumably going to be a touchdown, gets his helmet ripped off, and he still continues to go and score the touchdown, but they call it off because his helmet came off. So they said they blow the play dead. They stop there. K-State does not wind up getting a touchdown. They settle for a field goal. Baylor drives down, kicks a 53-yard field goal to win the game. Just one helmet being a little bit tighter on Jace Brown's head.
Yeah.
Away from winning that game in Waco. That would have been a statement win for K-State this year.
Such an interesting rule,
that would have
right?
been that would have been essentially a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Right? For Kansas State. Pivotal.
Yep. And now, realistically, we got to accept the fact that they're 2-4. They're not going to the Big 12 championship game.
Nope.
Any of that. They're going to have one game that can help salvage their season, and we got to be ready for them on October 25th. It's also a case of the Mondays for Purdue football. I just wanted to revisit this real quick because now, Dan, they are 0-11 in games following Taylor Swift album releases.
By the way, I put money on
Illinois.
I did. I said,
The
all right.
Taylor
Well,
Swift effect.
Once I heard that stat, I was like, look, it's
Taylor Swift effect. All right,
have
we
you
got
listened to the Taylor Swift.
No, I
thing?
have not.
You know what?
I have not. Hey, we got to get to this Mark Sanchez thing. Our last thing on Case of the Mondays. Explain it to me like I'm 5.
All right, so I will explain it to you like you're 5. So Mark Sanchez, the guy with the funny butt fumble, right? If you're a 5-year-old, yeah, I'd show probably that video of, hey, you ran into a guy's butt. Ha ha ha! How funny is that? Mark Sanchez was in Indianapolis to call the Raiders Colts game.
Is that in LA?
No, it's not in LA. Funny enough, it's in Indianapolis. So Mark Sanchez apparently was out the night before, had a few drinks, right? Which, you know, you're in a new city, you're wanting to explore the town. I get that. So this story gets crazier and crazier every time you hear it, because it first was reported by Adam Schefter that it was a robbery gone wrong. You go, oh no, Mark Sanchez, he was stabbed the night before on Saturday night in Indianapolis, went to the hospital, was in stable condition. You go, oh man, Mark Sanchez, you know, that's horrible. The robbery gone bad. It's awful stuff. And then you hear a report, the police go to the hospital and they charge Mark Sanchez for battery assault. And you go, what the hell? Why? He was the one who got stabbed. And then it comes out that he had basically assaulted and battered a 69-year-old DoorDash driver who was double parked on the side of the road. Mark Sanchez goes around, says, hey, you can't park here. The guy said, what do you mean? That's like, I'm just picking up a DoorDash delivery. Mark Sanchez gets into this guy's car, starts beating him up. The guy, Mark Sanchez, pulls out pepper spray. Pepper sprays a 69-year-old DoorDash driver. The DoorDash driver's fighting for his life. Self-defense, he grabs a knife and starts, trying to defend himself against Mark Sanchez. What happened?
And why?
This is the most insane.
I have so many questions.
By the way,
I have so many questions. Why
he was
Mark
drunk.
Sanchez is out? I know, but why is he? I mean, yeah, he's drunk. Why does he care so much about the parking?
That's the thing. I don't know. I have no idea. Mark Sanchez pulled this guy out of his car, threw him up against the wall, and then threw him on the ground. He started beating him up. Mark Sanchez pulled out pepper spray.
That's got to be a terrible feeling, being in the hospital trying to recover, and then you're woken up saying, "Hey, here's a felony battery charge."
I know.
You.
By the way, another report just came out today. Apparently, he's facing like 1 to 6 years in prison for this.
So was he not able to call the game on? Well, we shouldn't be laughing at this.
No,
But-
he was not able to call the game.
But yes, so
They had
that
to
is
scramble and find somebody else. This is an insane story. I mean,
level
this is-
5 felony battery charge, along with misdemeanor counts of public intoxication and unlawful entry, potentially, like you said, carrying up to 6 years in prison. Very, very strange. Yeah, that just came out a little bit earlier today.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Because like I said, I liked Mark Sanchez. I would watch him on like the NFL Network and different things where he would come on as an analyst. And I was like, oh, he's kind of a charming and fun guy. And then this story is just absolutely out of nowhere. Like if I were to pick like anybody, it probably wouldn't be Mark Sanchez, right? He seemed like a good guy, but all of a sudden, just everybody has those.
I mean, and this is a tweet that seems to get a lot of action here from Brandon Carney at Benchwarmer Brand. And this, I guess, is the way to put it. He says, so Mark Sanchez got hammered, broke into someone's car, and got stabbed for it. Do I have that right?
Yes. That is
But
correct.
there's obviously other elements like the pepper spray and what a strange deal.
story. Strange story.
Wow.
Man.
That's our
Hopefully,
case of the
yeah.
Mondays for today. The ups and downs and crazy world of sports and everything else going on in our world. Hey, after this, we're going to hear from the victorious head coach from Saturday, Lance Leipold, as KU knocked off UCF 27-20. Thanks for watching Rock Chalk Sports on KansasNation.com.
Hey, this is Cole Ballard, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
What an opportunity KU football has in West Texas on Saturday, going up against a top 10 ranked Texas Tech team. Red Raiders check in at number 9 in the AP poll. Of course, they've been running a train through their opponents so far, but the Hawks are feeling good, 4-2, 2-1 after their win at UCF. Let's hear from Coach Leipold postgame.
I guess just overall, how would you assess your team's performance?
We found a way. It wasn't the cleanest and things like that early, but I'm really proud of their perseverance in the second half. Being down, 14-0 to come back and outscore them 27-6, I think, says a lot about the resiliency of this team. And, we found a way to make some stops and still, as you know, plenty to clean up there that allowing some of their big plays, but, found a way to win a close game.
At halftime, looked like they were on pace for 500 yards. In total, it's 375. What changed? What changed in the second half?
Well, like DK, and I said, what's your thoughts on it? He goes, we just need to execute what we're calling better and stuff. And we didn't make big changes there. I mean, I think Bengali gave us a spark in some ways, but, I don't think we did a very good job setting edges or keeping leverage, when both are needed, and some missed tackles again, some of those things that we struggle with. But again, we certainly cleaned that up in the third quarter, and momentum shifted our way.
How much did Bengali help in the second half? He definitely showed up, felt like, throughout the...
Yeah, without going back and watching, but he definitely gave us a spark. He was very active, and I said in the post-game radio, for a guy that knew he wasn't going to play the first half, he might have had his best week of practice. He was very focused and determined. Very similar to the week he was coming off injury. He just a different look on his face. And I'm really proud of him. Really proud for what he's done. He laid it out there for us and made some big plays.
Everyone knows about the offense and what they can do, but see the defense make the big play, getting the strip sack fumble, the touchdown, and then angle from the 1 3 straight times to get a stop. What does that say? How much confidence does that give?
Yeah, this group, and you could see a couple passes even in one of those last drive. Where sometimes we're not playing with, we're playing soft and a little bit, get on our heels. So to make some of those plays, definitely huge confidence builders for this group. And I think Austin was one that Alexander gave up some, had some cushion, but then he makes a big break up there late for us. So again, these guys are growing and on the job training, so to speak, halfway through the season. I think this could be a big one for them to hopefully gain some confidence. But like you said, here we are calling the timeouts, and then you get the stopping where if you gave, I probably should have let one of those go, right? And then we'd have about a minute to go or something. But to get that stop, and it really says a lot. And again, that just shows you you got to play to score. And not saying they didn't, I think they did. But for us to make those plays was huge.
When you go into the 2-minute warning and 2nd and goal on the 1 yard line, what did you kind of see from the defense during that break heading into that play?
Well, again, they were rallied around. They weren't defeated. They talked to, but again, let's keep them out. All the kind of things that you expect guys to say, and then we talked about making sure that we saved ourselves time if they did score. That we would give ourselves plenty of time to drive and try to kick a field goal to win it or something, or see where it takes us. So again, some big stops there.
Coach, it's been a career year for Jalon Daniels, and going into this game, I mean, UCF's defense was able to contain him a little bit on the rushing. So how were you able to adjust to their defense and get him to get those passing yards?
Yeah, he didn't rush for as much, and that's a credit for them. Most of the stuff that he did was the quarterback sneaks and stuff. I thought we had that last run. We had a missed block there. We thought we had an edge, and then we could have maybe knocked that out before we had to punt. But again, you could see his abilities and his touch, and we had some big catches. He had some big time throws. Jalon will do whatever it takes for us to win football games and to be at his best and leading this football team. And I thought he had another really nice night tonight.
Lance, you talked about making the most of red zone opportunities. Leshon Williams goes in, gets 3 touchdowns, increased opportunities. What do you think of this game overall today?
Yeah, he's another guy that's been banged up, and he's a tough son of a gun. I'll tell you that. And he's midweek. He's still fighting through it. He's limited in practice quite a bit in what he's doing. And then I'll ask what he's doing. He goes, I'll be good to go by Saturday. And he's not a guy that's looking to pace himself. He just knows. He knows his body, he knows what it's going to take, but he's physical. And there's some big runs for him that weren't touchdowns that you can really see him churning his legs and moving the pile and keeping us in good down distance situations.
You guys had prepared for multiple quarterbacks, but what was the adjustment like when they actually did have to make a quarterback?
Yeah, there's probably not as much vertical game there until they had to and stuff. Sometimes there were some things limited when they made the change. I don't think there's a distinct different game plan. I think there's throws that some guys make better than others that they may feel confident with, but it's not like all of a sudden let's open up a different call sheet for this quarterback per se.
Coach, speaking of players that have been banged up, Lathan Marjan came in as a game-time decision. What happened to list him as a game-time decision, and how's he doing now?
Well, he's been a game. He's had a lower body injury, injury, I guess, and was limited all week. Did some on Thursday for us. He didn't know how he was going to feel. Again, he came out in warm-ups. He told me he was kicking barefoot while it was raining because he didn't want to get his shoe all wet. But he told me he was good to go. But I think you could see a guy who didn't practice all week. The field goal that was, what was that, the second one? It wasn't even 41. I mean, it hit the crossbar. It was like, I think he was starting to get tired. And I asked him if he was okay, and he said he was, but the next kickoff went out of bounds, and I think he did start to tire. But he gave us a gutty performance from a kicker standpoint, and he's been very good for us. And I told the team afterwards how proud I was the way he gutted it out. So hopefully we'll see what he's like for next week, and hopefully we get him a full week's worth of work because obviously we need him.
You maybe touched on this a little bit, but what can it do for the team's confidence to pull out a narrow victory, especially after how last week went?
I think obviously it's a happy bunch in there that is really proud. I think hopefully, again, after not getting a stop last week and doing those things, any of those type of things are confidence builders. I think offensively gives us confidence because we're down at half the way it was, and to be able to come out the second half and, especially when they got the ball, I was thinking of Michael and his middle eight questions, his right at the end of the first half, and how that was all going to play out. So it was big for us that way, and I think this team, and I told them the biggest thing is it's great to have confidence, but you got to come back to work on Monday hungry for a big challenge.
You guys are down 14-0. What did you see on the sideline?
Again, disappointment. But again, things that were correctable, and I think that's the biggest thing that we saw in the second half is they got corrected. We tackled better, I believe. We did a better job with leverage. I think we corralled them a lot better. Offensively, we got into a rhythm, and we were able to create some things. So all those things, again, I didn't feel, oh no, here we go, this is going to be ugly, but it wasn't, everybody smiling and laughing either. It was concerning, of course, but I'm really proud that this group didn't flinch and kept battling.
I'm curious, who are the players that you hear their voices or you notice are taking on some of that accountability and leadership?
Again, Bryce Foster, Jalon Daniels, there's a lot of guys in there. Justice Finkley, the guys are some of the but there were other guys in there. Taylor Davis until he went out. There's other guys that were DJ Withers. There were a lot of guys in there. Levi Wentz, I could remember hearing him. There's a lot of guys that were a lot more encouraging and not frustrated and those things. They knew it was going to be a battle. And the one thing we say, this is the way this conference is, that these games are going to be close all the time, so you better be used to being in close games. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so in what ways do you think the rain affected the game?
I don't know if it really did per se. It kind of went through. I thought our guys battled it. We've had maybe one day of some light rain that we've practiced in. Every other one it's been lightning where we've had to come in. I didn't see, the ball wasn't on the ground a lot. I thought snaps and everything. I didn't feel guys were dropping balls. I thought the field was in excellent condition. Hats off to the facilities people here because I didn't see a bunch of guys slipping all over the place either. So.
Anything else, Coach?
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Was it the wardrobe change that?
That's head coach Lance Leipold. That was his second outfit of the day.
Yeah, I know he had a wardrobe change at halftime.
It was raining. Had to be what it was.
That's fair. No, that makes sense.
Both hoodies were awesome as usual.
Yes.
But it turns
See the
out
hoodie he was wearing today, by the way?
Very nice.
Also really cool.
Yes, the Black Warhawk uniforms and matching attire in general, a favorite of mine for sure. Hey, KU upcoming this weekend, of course, they're on the road, so no game at the booth, but KU Athletics announcing today that they're hosting another watch party at the booth, as they did a little bit earlier this season. It's going to be a 6:30 kick. Doors are going to open at 5:30. 1921 Field Club, University of Kansas Conference Center at the booth. Parking is free and available in the surface lots surrounding the stadium, and you can enter at the Conference Center main entrance, which is Gate 5. Of course, got the big screen, 22 by 12-foot video wall inside the Field Club. Going to be concession specials as well. Don't need to RSVP, but you can enjoy the away game atmosphere at the booth. Dan, I know you were there the first time they did it. Really cool thing they're putting on.
I was, yeah. It was absolutely cool. Yeah, no, it was really great. All the fans were able to get out there and check out the amenities too. I mean, you look at the 1921 Club kind of as, like this exclusive thing, but you can go in there and check out essentially every aspect because Kansas is really proud of what they've been able to do with this new stadium, and they want to be able to show it off. So I think that's really cool that they're going to be opening that up once again for this game in Lubbock. And looking at this game in Lubbock, man, this is going to be I'll say it right now. This is going to be the biggest game of the year, I think, in terms of where this Kansas squad is going to be headed for the remainder of the season. If they can come out of Lubbock with a win, all of a sudden you're riding that high. You're not even looking at just getting bowl eligible anymore. You're looking at potentially making a run for the Big 12 once again.
This is an important game because you're playing a really good team on the road, but we're also kind of getting to that point in the season where there's only so many games, and your goals for the season are kind of adjusted based on a win or a loss, right? And isn't that where we're at right now? Because like you said, if you win against Texas Tech, whoa, okay, we got 2 home games after this. We can start dreaming
one
a
loss
little
in the
bit.
conference too.
For sure. And if you lose, then, you might have to say, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a tougher climb for Kansas, but that UCF win was so big. We're pumped about that. We're going to be asking our guests to break that down and what they liked from Saturday's game all week long here on Rock Chalk Sports. After this, though, we're talking Chiefs football. Monday Night Football in Duval County, Chiefs and Jags. Thanks for watching Rock Chalk Sports on KansasNation.com.
This is Daniel Highshaw, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
John Kellerman, Dan Courtwright back in the Kansas Nation studios, state of the art here on Mass Street. Thanks for joining us on Rock Chalk Sports. Before we talk Chiefs Jags, Dan, some unfortunate news that Lance Leipold came forth with today when asked about the status of players like Daniel Highshaw and Deshaun Hanukkah, who we did not see on Saturday. Sounds like there's a good chance that Highshaw could be back at some point, but unfortunately, Hanukkah underwent surgery, and he's going to miss the rest of the year.
Yeah, very unfortunate. Obviously, we've seen that guy battle through a ton of different injuries last year with the lower leg injury, the Achilles injury, missed the entire year, and was really hopeful to come back this year and be a part of this Kansas program. And just it's so unfortunate. Injuries are a part of the game. We all understand it. But with a guy like Hanukkah, who's so easy to root for, a guy who's local, grew up a KU fan, it really stinks. And obviously, he's an older player as well. This was supposed to be his last year. Now, granted, I don't know in terms of the timeline if he's going to be able to get a medical red shirt, if he even wants to be able to do that, but we understand that his main goal is to try to get to the NFL or at least some level of professional football, and hopefully he has the amount of tape to be able to get him to that level, but really just unfortunate. But you feel good in terms of, obviously it sucks for Hanukkah, but you feel good about the depth that you have at that tight end spot with Bowden Gruen coming up huge, Carson Brune having a great year as well in the blocking game. You still have Leighton Cure. So, you feel good about the depth in the tight end room, but a big loss for this Kansas football squad.
Hanukkah, a married man, going to have a baby coming in December, so certainly thinking of him, and I know that he'll be supporting his teammates moving forward, but a tough loss for KU football from a roster side of things. Quick update on the MLB playoffs. Those, of course, have been underway. 2 series have already had 2 games in the books. It's a best of 5 in the ALDS and NLDS. On the American League side of things, Blue Jays have blown out the Yankees each of the first 2 games, so they have a chance as the series goes to New York tomorrow to wrap it up in a sweep. So the Jays, the 1 seed in the American League, up 2-0 on the Yankees in a best of 5. And on the other side, Tigers and Mariners tied at 1 game apiece as that series moves to Detroit tomorrow. On the NL side, just 1 game for both Cubs, Brewers, and Dodgers, Phillies. Brewers blew out the Cubs in their game 1, and the Dodgers actually stole one. A late 3-run homer from Teoscar Hernandez puts the Dodgers on top in that series. 1-0.
Playoffs end right now. Who's your World Series champ?
Playoffs and right now, well, man.
Well, not records aside, games aside, who do you think is just playing the best baseball right now?
That's a really good question.
I mean,
you know what?
Can say
I want to say Blue Jays, Brewers in the World Series, but the Dodgers are going to be there.
I know.
The Dodgers are going to be there.
Sucks.
That being said, I mean, they got to beat the Phillies, so I think whoever wins that series ends up having enough firepower.
The only thing giving me solace in all of this, by the way, is that the Dodgers are going to be terrible for the next 40 years after Shohei Ohtani retires.
That money keeps growing. You never know. In baseball, you never know. Hey, let's talk Chiefs Jags. We'll talk about the line and some game picks. But Dan, an injury update that you could provide for us from an important member of the Chiefs roster.
Yeah, well, so there's a number of different guys who are a little dinged up. I mean, Hollywood Brown, Mike Dana, those guys are a little dinged up, but they will be good to go for tonight. A couple of guys questionable. Christian Fulton at the cornerback position. He's going to be kind of day-to-day. And then Xavier Worthy, questionable with a shoulder and ankle injury, not a shoulder ankle injury, but he has a shoulder injury, obviously, that he got from Travis Kelce, and then dealing with an ankle injury right now. Xavier Worthy should be good to go. Also, Omar Norman Lott, he's been dealing with a shoulder injury as well. He's questionable for today's game. He's been really kind of impressive throughout these first couple of weeks. I think he's done a great job for a guy who 2nd-round draft pick, rookie, coming out of Tennessee, and done a fantastic job. It's sort of an interior defensive line. Should be a good one tonight for Chiefs Jaguars. Jaguars defense is really stout, right? They've got a lot of really good players. Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, not Josh Allen. Josh Hines Allen wants to differentiate himself. Eric Armstead as well. So their defensive line group is really good. They're going to get a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes, but obviously we saw Patrick Mahomes play one of his best games, at least the best game of the year, last week against the Baltimore Ravens. Hopefully that momentum can continue also, but the Chiefs really need to get their wide receiver room healthy again. Now, if you look at it on the flip side of things, the Jacksonville Jaguars, their wide receiver room has not been showing out as of late, right? They have really good weapons in Brian Thomas, right? They have some solid, they have Darren Waller, right? But also at the same time, you're looking at it and you go, man, the stats are just not there for these Jacksonville Jaguars. Is it going to happen in prime time tonight, or are they going to sort of figure it out? Who knows? I like Liam Cohen a lot. I think he's a very good, I think he's a dork, right? But I still think he's a really good head coach. I think he's got it figured out. Obviously made Baker Mayfield a really outstanding player with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing just fine without Liam Cohen. So I'm never out on Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be an interesting game, though, down in Jacksonville.
Interesting. You mentioned the receivers, and we'll get some game picks here shortly, but Brian Thomas Jr., the main guy who I think has underperformed, but the Jags are still 3-1 with a rookie head coach. So this is going to be tough. I kind of like it when the Jags are good. I don't know why.
I do too. They're fun to root for. No,
yeah, it's just it gets tiring when the Jags are 2-11 every year.
I have an uncle who lives in Jacksonville.
That's right. I forget that they're a top 3 team of yours.
Yeah, he's a professor at UNF, and my two cousins who are his kids, they're big Jags fans. So they've always had a special place in my heart. I think that it's fun to see them good. Right?
Rapid fire game picks here. Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites on the road. Over under is 45.5. Dan, who do you like in this one, and any quick props?
Yes. So I'll go with the line first. I like the Chiefs -3.5. I think the Chiefs are riding on that momentum against the Ravens. I love that there. And I think the under is going to hit in this game. 45.5 is a big line for two teams who are relatively dinged up in their skill position players, both on the offensive. Well, I guess Chiefs are dinged up on the offensive side of the ball. Jaguars just haven't figured it out yet. So I think this game is going to hit the under. I think it's going to be kind of a defensive chess match. Also, I like the Chiefs defense around anybody. For some prop bets, I like Hollywood Brown anytime touchdown +265. Also, potentially Tyquan Thornton +390. I like those odds. He's been hot.
Hey, Brian Thomas Jr. over 56.5 receiving yards, going with that. Also, disrespectful. Isaiah Pacheco anytime touchdown +380. He does it again. +380. You kidding me? Chiefs and Jags tonight at 7:15. For Elijah Schmidt running the operations today and Dan Courtwright, this is Sean Kellerman saying we'll catch you tomorrow on Rock Chalk Sports. Thanks for watching. KansasNation.com.